Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. I'm your host Thibaut, and as you might know, I'm from Belgium, a country most famous for beer and chocolate. But did you know that in Belgium we also have a rich history in the manufacturing of cars? So, in the beginning of the 20th century, there were a lot of car makers in Belgium. Most of these guys were small car makers were building handmade cars in limited editions. But in these types of cars, there were a lot of innovations made. So now we're going to take a look at some of these car makers from back in the day. So the first brand on our list brings us to Antwerp. This brand is Minerva. This was a luxury brand that was mostly selling to the higher up classes like the kings and queens or some other noblemen who had the money for it. This was because this car was also known as the Rolls Royce of Belgium. The reason for this was because they used a real silent Knights motor that you almost couldn't hear when driving around. And the reason that this brand disappeared is because of the economic crisis in the 30s of the previous age. So the next brand on our list is the FN brand. This was also known as Fabrique Nationale d'Armes. This is French for National Factory for Weapons. This is because they are still known today and they are still at their core are producing weapons. But during the period between 1899 and 1939, they used to produce cars and motorcycles as well. The reason they stopped doing this was because it was difficult to keep the concurrence going with bigger European brands at the time. So, the third brand on our list is Imperia. This is a brand that produced cars for the middle class, but they also produce luxury cars. They were most famous because they had a test track on top of the factory in Nessenvaux. This brand disappeared after World War II because it was difficult to keep the concurrence going with the bigger brands at the time. But they did have one short revival in 2008. This is when they made a hybrid sports car, the Imperia GP, but this was a car produced in a limited run. So the next brand on our list is Metallurgic. This was a producer that mostly produced luxury and sports cars, but these were almost always made tailored to the client. Unfortunately, this was also part of the reason they disappeared. This was because all of these cars were built tailored exactly to what the client liked, and all this time that was put into making these cars did make these cars very expensive. This was one of the main reasons this brand disappeared. The other reason was because they had been bought by other companies. But during the 10s and 20s of the previous age, these cars did win a lot of races in Europe. The next brand on our list is one we could compare to the first one we started with, Minerva. This was Excelsior. They also made luxury and race cars. And the reason they disappeared was because of almost the same reasons that Minerva stopped producing cars. This was because of the economic recession and the concurrence that they had from other car brands at the time. These were the main big brands in Belgium during this time, but there were also some smaller ones, like Pipe, Vivinus, Germain, Automixte, and Belgarise. These car brands produced some smaller series or were mainly focusing on experimental cars. The reason these cars brands also disappeared were because they were too small, too expensive, or they were being bought out by other car companies. But there is one that springs out. This was Automixte. This is because this was the first brand that built hybrid cars ever. Although these car brands did not survive till this day, they did leave a legacy behind. They were pioneers in technique, luxury, and innovation. But unfortunately, most of these car brands couldn't keep up with the mass production and the international concurrence. Today, we do see a couple of Belgian brands, but these are mostly focused on some niche markets, sport wagons, or luxury cars. So, the first one over on our list from current Belgian brands is Gillette Automobiles. This was set up by Tony Gillet in 1992. They became famous for their Vertigo. This was a car which was ultra light, had a Ferrari engine, and was made entirely of carbon fiber. The reason for the success of this brand is because they put a lot of focus on the exclusivity of the cars and on the performance of their cars. The next brand on our list is Apple. They exist since 1961 and they produce mostly kit cars and sport wagons made from polyester. They've got a couple of popular models, for example, the Apple Coupe and their buggies. So the third brand on our list is eCar 333. This is a pretty new company because they have been active since 2017. So this is the most recent one on our list. They are producing an electric three-wheeler for mostly city use. This is an innovative and uh, durable solution for the otherwise crowded traffic scene in most cities. Then we've also got Carat du Châtelet. This is a really high-end car brand. This is because they are making uh, panzered elongated limousines. These cars are mainly sold to VIPs and to governments worldwide. So these brands show that Belgium is still a car company that shows innovativeness and exclusivity without producing cars en masses. So next to these national brands, there are also there is also a big presence for the international car world. For examples, in Ghent, we got the Volvo Cars Ghent, which produces the XC40 and the C40 Recharge. Then in Brussels, we've got Audi Brussels. This produced the Q8 e-tron, the electric SUV from the Audi group. Then we also got two of the biggest uh, bus builders in the world, the Van Hool Group and VDL. So as you can see, in Belgium there isn't any mass production from our own national brands, but it still is a keystone in innovative luxury and EV technology. So from the luxury Minerva cars to the ultralight Vertigo and the electrical city cars. Belgium has a lot of surprises and a very rich history in the car world. Although it might be small, there are a lot of innovative brands and some factories that produce for the entire world. We are very proud on our historical icons that were made in Belgium, although they might be a bit unknown to the most of the car guys around the world. But what would you choose? Would you choose one of or more older luxury cars, or would you choose one over new and very light cars? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell.